Welcome friends, welcome again to the class of international business. So, in the last lecture we had started discussing about the effect of supply chain management, global sourcing and manufacturing strategy on international business, right, of a firm. So, as we discussed that the most important thing that firms today are doing are managing the supply chain in the most efficient manner, right. And thanks to the internet, that today it has been possible that supply chain systems have become very much effective, right, in comparison to the earlier days when there was no that not much of internet systems and there was no development in that. So, we realize that today companies are all competing against each other for, maybe it is a, for example, companies like you talk about the big Unilever, or for example, Johnson and Johnson, or you talk about Hyundai, you talk about Honda Motors, you talk about Toyota, you talk about, for example, Apple, right, Cisco Systems. So, all these companies, whoever you can think of, right, whichever company you can think of, they have created a very robust, very strong, efficient a supply chain system, right. And then we also talked about what is the role of global sourcing, because today the whole world has become like one big market. No wonder that most of the American companies are having their operations in China, in Taiwan, in India, because they find it they find that the markets are also there, and as well as there is a lot of opportunity in production and manufacturing, because the quality is good enough, and in addition to the good quality, there is a high advantage of low cost manufacturing, right. So, in the last lecture we started discussing about this global sourcing and production strategy. So, let us look at this diagram, right. So, when you talk about global sourcing and the production strategy, so how does it look like? First, it starts with the sourcing of the raw materials, the parts and the components which are important in the production or the manufacturing process, right. So, once these components are sourced, right, it could be sourced from the home country or abroad, or some foreign other places, or both, right. Then it goes to the manufacture and assembly of components and the final products. So, either it goes into the manufacturing system or the assembling of the parts. For example, most of the computer manufacturers are today assemblers, whereas you see most of the car manufacturer or many other companies, they manufacture their own products. So, that then it goes to the manufacturing process or assembly process. Then finally, it goes to the sales of the products. So, this stage is called the stage of production and sales, where you source, manufacture and sell the product. So, and this is the location of the sourcing, right. It could be home in the home country, or it could be somewhere outside. So, it depends, and all this when done efficiently, this complex system when they can be managed efficiently, it leads to a very high optimization of the businesses, right. So, the global firms, they do extremely well because they can manage these supply chain systems and everything, right. So, they gain advantage, they create a differentiating factor, they become low cost manufacturers, and that is how they become successful. Okay. Now, what is the advantage of the global sourcing? Now, first of all, when you talk about the global sourcing, you see all the countries, when you talk about international business, you have to talk about global sourcing. We have already understood that. Now, why global sourcing is required? First of all, it creates a low cost manufacturing, right. So, most of the companies who come to India from Europe or USA or from Canada, anywhere from, so most of these companies come to these places, the Asian economies, just because they find a good market and also equally a very low cost manufacturing system. Then tapping skills and resources that are not available in the home nation. Now, there can be some skill or resources. For example, Indians are very good at mathematics, right, and their data analytics skills are very good. So, many Indians are hired for programming and data analytics like job, which is a very good skill. So, that becomes an advantage for the companies to hire people with such certain skills and at a good at a cost which is beneficial to them. Then seeking the benefit of alternate suppliers. So, global sourcing helps you to have several suppliers. So, sometimes there is a debate whether it should be one supplier or few supplier which is preferable, or multiple supplier theory. So, should a company have large number of supplier base, so that in case something goes wrong they can back upon some other suppliers, or they should depend only a few ones and try to invest in them and develop them. Now, that is a debate which has been going on. Some theorists have been saying this few supplier theory is good, some have been saying the large supplier base is good. Now, that is a very debatable, they both have their own pros and cons. So, we will see that. Utilizing an efficient supply chain management system, right, and it helps you to learn the global business skills, right. Global sourcing also helps you to learn global business skills, right, meeting competition prudently and efficiently. You understand when I am sourcing from different places, what are my competitors doing, how are they manufacturing, do I have an advantage over them or they are having an advantage over us, right. And it also helps you to make a presence in the foreign markets. So, these are some of the sourcing advantages. By sourcing the raw material, the market also becomes accessible to the manufacturer, right. But it is not that global sourcing is without its disadvantages, they have a lot of disadvantages also. What happens? No exposure of international culture, tradition and beliefs, right. So, when you are suppose you do not have an exposure of international culture, and when you are sourcing it from globally, you may run into a risk of offending somebody, or trying to disturb somebody, hurt somebody's sentiments or culture. So, that becomes a difficult how to manage. Actually, this is something you can understand, managing the supply chain because of the difference in the culture and the behaviors becomes a big challenge, right. Cross cultural aspects are very important, right. Second is the hidden costs related to different time zones and languages, and also you can say the productivity, right, of the people, right, or the skills. So, sometimes it is argued that some markets like for example, the Indian market the labor is very cheap, but then some other argue that it is not so, because if you see the Indian labor works for a lesser time in comparison to a worker in China or for example, Japan. Now, the overall cost when we count, sometimes it is not what one assumes, right. So, that becomes another disadvantage if one runs into a market where the productivity of the workers is less, right. Financial and political risks associated with the emerging economies, right. When you are getting into a global sourcing, so there is a financial and political risk. The political risk, like for example, there could be a political instability in the country, in those countries, or there could be a financial issues which may run into a currency exposure or a currency issue. So, then a risk of losing intellectual properties, patents. For example, many pharmaceutical industries, their major complaint is that their intellectual property is being not safe in safe hands when it comes to the emerging economies. It is being copied, and the players in these economies, they are copying technology and products and making on their own. Long lead times also becomes a major issue. Labor problems are another issue. For example, I remember one company in Orissa which came to start its operations called POSCO, a South Korean company. They had a major issue, right. They could not, they had invested lots of money and time in to start their operations, but they could not do it because of the political issues and the labor issues. So, they had to suffer, right. Many companies do not understand the labor regulations also in another country, that becomes a difficulty. Unnecessary shutdowns and supply interruptions are also mainstay in many emerging economies. So, how do these MNCs, how do they control, how do they take care of it? Because maybe looking at this overall, sometimes it becomes more costlier to be in a country where just the labor cost might be less, but other issues might make it more costlier, right. Difficulty in supervision, and then difficulty of monitoring the quality of the goods and services. So, all these are different issues which are also involved with the global sourcing. Actually, rather than saying disadvantages, I would say it is difficulties of global sourcing, right, rather than saying disadvantages. Now, sometimes as we discussed that some arguments are there that companies should go for a sole sourcing or only sourcing from very few vendors, right. But then there are arguments, as I was saying in the just some time back. So, for example, what are the sole sourcing advantages? When companies go for a few companies, they get some advantages. For example, The advantage could be price discounts based on higher volume, rewards for loyalty during tough times. So, many companies have seen employed this strategy and they have got the rewards also, because by being loyal to their vendors, the vendors have repaid back in a difficult times, right. Exclusivity brings differentiation also, right, and greater influence with the supplier. So, companies like Tata's, for example, in India, they have invested a lot in developing their suppliers, so that these suppliers can help in the differentiation of their products and bring in new innovation and changes. But there are disadvantages because higher risk of disruption. Suppose there is a logistical problem or there is a issue in the company, then if you have few suppliers, maybe the getting the raw material or the components becomes a challenge. And then sometimes even if your choice of supplier is wrong or bad, then the negotiating issues come into play, and the supplier maybe tries to negotiate on basis of its power, right. So, these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the sole sourcing, right. Similarly, multi sourcing, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. Multi sourcing means multiple sourcing from multiple sources and large number of vendors. So, you have a flexibility in times of disruption. For example, as of today when the corona is going on, so countries have understood that had the dependence on Chinese vendors been little less, it would have been much better, because the supply chain disruptions would not have been as high as it is today. Negotiating lower rates by pitting one supplier against another. So, by making the suppliers compete against each other, the buyer can take advantage of the price advantage. But what is the disadvantage? The disadvantage is that because of the lesser price, maybe the quality suffers. Suppose a vendor is selected on basis of price, the quality of the produce the component might be severely affected. Similarly, the influence with each supplier is also low, because you are not involved, you do not know who the supplier is exactly as good as when you have few suppliers. So, that also becomes a disadvantage, and we have seen and moreover, the third point can tell you better, the higher coordination and the management cost, because you have large number of suppliers, how to coordinate with them and how to manage the coordination cost. So, that becomes a challenge. So, overall it has been seen in the recent times that companies have preferred a sole sourcing strategy, but that would not be true to say in as an umbrella blanket wise, because it depends on the what kind of products also the companies are manufacturing. If the company's products are very sensitive or very much elastic, price highly sensitive to price and all, and they are very suppose sensitive products, in that case you need to have a lot of backup. So, that time maybe depending on a large number of suppliers might be good, but suppose it is a regularized product to be manufactured, then a few suppliers is always preferable. So, there could be different arguments for and against both the points, right. Now, major sourcing configurations. So, earlier since the past it has been seen the world has gone through several changes. For example, when you talk about the sourcing, companies in the past had gone for after when Ronald Coase theory came up, Ronald Coase gave this theory of transaction cost, right, and with Williamson. So, not with Williamson, Williamson did in a different time frame, but Williamson also has talked about transaction cost. So, vertical integration was a concept which said that companies need to be independent and they should do everything on their own, so that there is very little dependency on outsiders, and that is how they can control the maximum. So, they would not have a problem of let us say quality, problem of availability of raw material or all these things, right. But then these sourcing methods were sometimes were largely challenged, and vertical integration gave way to to new methods of thinking in the recent future, and companies thought why not get into a more specialized thing, right, where one company does only one thing in a good way and not that one company does everything on its own. So, this helped in reducing the cost of the products, because obviously vertical integration you were doing everything. So, you did not have you could not optimize on everything, and the cost of manufacturing was not being able to control. But when the idea of specialization came in, the companies did only one or two things and they became experts in that become really helpful for reducing cost and having better qualities. Similarly, industrial clusters are preferred to nowadays because industrial clusters also help in reducing the transaction cost to a large extent, because a large number of industries are clustered around, and because they are close to each other, the transportation costs are very less. That is how the idea of a special economic zone has also come into play. So, industrial clusters are very also important concepts which help in sourcing, right. Another important point when the company talks about manufacturing strategy and optimizing and supply chain optimization, it is to decide whether to make or buy, right. So, this becomes what it is saying is a make or buy decision is an act of choosing between manufacturing a product in house or purchasing it from an external supplier. So, would you like to make it in house, that means would the manufacturer would like to make the product by its own, or they would like to give it to somebody else. Now, this was an idea which came out from the theory of Prahlad and Hamel, Gary Hamel, when they talked about the idea of core competency. They said there is no, it is not wise that a company should do the product, everything on their own, rather they should depend on most of the products, they should do it, should get it from outside, from vendors who are good at doing this, right. So, core competency was the idea which said that a company has a core competency and they should focus on their core competency, right. So, the make or buy decision become a very integral part after that when this kind of discussions arise, right. So, sometimes it is referred to as an outsourcing, this buy decision is sometimes referred to as an outsourcing also, right. So, a make or buy decision compares the cost and benefits associated with producing a necessary good or service internally to the cost and benefits involved in hiring an outside supplier. Now, to compare costs accurately, a company must consider all aspects regarding the acquisition and storage versus creating the items in house. So, the point is, this is a very debatable thing. There have been lots of research papers on this, whether the company should go for a make decision or should they go for a buy decision, and I am talking about only from an economical point of view, I am not talking from a political point of view. So, if you talk from an economical point of view, sometimes it looks imperative to make it, because as vertical integration said, you do everything on your own, but then later on they said there is no point in doing everything, rather you work on your core competency and you buy the other products from suppliers or vendors who are good at it. But the question is, if you do this buying decision or you do make it, you have to first compare. One has to, the company has to compare whether in the trade off, if they make it, it is a profitable, or they buy it, it is a profitable, and this profitability is necessarily to be seen not only from a short term perspective, it is from a long term perspective also, because there is a very famous paper called the Hollow Corporation, in which the author Bettis had said that by outsourcing most of the products from external vendors, the companies are losing their ability to manufacture in house. Now, that is a very threatening point. For a short term profit, it is okay, but what about when a company outsources a system for a very long time and it loses its ability to have its to do it in house, and then after that maybe the companies or the suppliers can have a higher negotiation power. So, that is kind of, these are the kind of worries which one can have when you talk about a make or buy decision, right. Then we talk about the global logistics and the distribution, how global logistics happen and what is how it with the how the distribution happens. Now, global logistics and distribution have played a critical role in the growth and development of world trade and in the integration of manufacturing on a worldwide scale. Yep, because we understand logistics is basically the entire transfer of goods and services, right, from one place to the other. Now, when you talk about this, the use of appropriate distribution channels in the international markets increases the chances of success dramatically. Now, what kind of a distribution channel? If you have a right distribution channel, now what is a right distribution channel? A right distribution channel is means, what I mean is that the channel should be as per the local conditions. So, in some countries the distribution channels are very long, some the distribution channels are very short. So, it depends on the culture of the country, right. As firms start operating on a global basis, logistic managers need to manage shipping of raw materials, components, and supplies among various manufacturing sites at the most economical and reliable rates. So, and finally, the development of intermodal transportation and electronic tracking methods has resulted in a quantum jump in the efficiency of the logistic methods. So, as I said, thanks to internet and all this RFID and systems like which can tracking devices and all, which have helped in maintaining the logistics and optimizing in the logistics sector. So, earlier days what used to happen for a let us say a shipping or a truck has moved. So, we did not know where it was and how it was doing, how many days it would take to reach the destination, but today it has become very simple to keep a track on it and then manage it, right. So, so let us look at this how it looks, the global logistics. So, the raw materials, components and supplies, this is the raw material component supplies, and it goes, so this is goes to the firm, right. So, this part is called the material management, okay. And here when it comes to the firm, there is processing and assembly, right, and finished products are made, right. So, this is the sourcing strategy of the firm, and after this finished products is made, then physical distribution happens. So, there are subtopics like transportation, how to transport, where to warehouse and how to warehouse, how to manage the inventory, how to take the customer order entry, and how to administer it, what is the administration method. So, these factors affect the physical distribution also, right. So, now and then with the help of this, the product is supplied to customers around the world. Now, these processes, this only 3 steps, they are it looks very simple, but there is a lot to work on it, and it is every step you can see. In transportation you can optimize, how you can optimize in the warehousing system, how to manage your inventory, how to forecast your inventory, how to take the order, how to reduce the lead time, everything, right, how to manage your people, the labor who is working, right, how to create a total quality management. All these things in total have a large impact on the global logistics system and further on the international business or the profitability of the company to spread their business in so many different countries, right. Now, how do you define this global logistics? Material management refers to the inflow of raw material, parts and supplies through the firm. So, when you talk about this here, this point, material management. So, when you are talking about global logistics, we said the entire spread of distribution or spread of the goods and services from one part to the other is logistics. Now, these two things let us say we will discuss. Material management out of it refers to the inflow of raw material, parts and supplies. It is not all throughout the firm. So, material management also includes managing the products, for example, how to code the products, how to manage it in different order, in a particular order, so that getting it in the right time becomes easier and simpler, right. And what is physical distribution? When we say physical distribution refers to the movement of the finished products to its customers, consisting of transportation, warehousing, inventory, order entry and administration, which we discussed, okay. Now, this is how a distribution channel looks like. So, the manufacturer inside the country, the manufacturer is inside the country, when the manufacturer is outside the country, okay. So, there is a, you see, there is a wholesale distributor, then a retail distributor and the final customer, right. So, when it is outside the country, the manufacturer is outside the country, it has an import agent, and this import agent then tries to connect through the wholesale distributors or the retail distributors or the final customers. So, the manufacturer can do it directly or can do it through an import agent, but when it is inside the country, it can have a better control over the distribution channel. Now, what are the differences between the distribution system? Now, 4 main differences between the distribution system exist. What are they? Retail concentration. So, what is retail concentration? We will see. First let us discuss the 4. Retail concentration, length of the channel, channel exclusivity and channel quality, right. What they are, let us see one by one. Retail concentration, in some countries retail system is concentrated, but it is fragmented in others. Now, what it is meaning? In a concentrated system, a few, that means concentrated is few, retail suppliers supply most of the market, most of the products. In the United States example, a few retailers or large retailers control the system. In a fragmented retail system, there are many retailers and none of them have a major share in the market. For example, Japan, you cannot although you can there is if there are few major ones, but you cannot say as in US you have large ones like the Walmart, Home Depot or anybody, you cannot find that in this fragmented system. Okay. Now, what is channel length? It refers to the number of intermediaries between the producer and the consumer. If producer sells directly to the consumer, the channel is very short. If the producer sells through an import agent, a wholesaler, a retailer and a retailer, the channel length is increasing. In some countries, in fact, they have a short channel length, that means they try to remove the intermediaries as much as possible. For example, there could be, for example, let us see the manufacturer, then there is a C&F agent, there is a wholesaler, there is a distributor also, there is a retailer, then there is a customer. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, there can be 6 lengths also, right. But in some countries they could just jumble up 1 or 2 of them and then make it 1, right, or even this 3 could be made 1, right. So, this intermediary works like all the 3 jobs it is doing. So, the more the channel length we can understand, obviously the more the cost also, but to maintain the efficiency, the quality, sometimes it is important, and the spread also to make it efficient. So, the most important determinant of a channel length is the degree to which the retail system is fragmented. Fragmented retail system tend to promote the growth of wholesaler to serve retailers, which lengthens the channel. Now, if you have a very concentrated channel, then it is you have few. So, there is a scope of reducing the channel length. Japan and India have a larger or a longer instead of a larger, a longer channel length. US, Britain, Germany have shorter channel lengths. Okay. Third point is the channel exclusivity. Now, exclusive distribution channel is one that is difficult for a new firm to get access to the shelf space to the supermarkets. Now, this exclusivity varies among countries. Let us see, Japan's system is often held up as an example of very exclusive system. In Japan, why, you see this is important, relationship among the manufacturer, wholesaler and retailer often go back to decades, because the Japanese give lot of importance to loyalty and trust, right. So, they would not switch from one supplier to the other just because of some small change in the price, some benefit in price or cost. So, because of this is an exclusive distribution system, right. Many of these relationships are based on the understanding that distributors will not carry the products of the competing firms, that kind of a trust or loyalty is there. In return, the distributors are guaranteed markup by the manufacturer. So, the distributors are also guaranteed about the product and the benefits to the that it offers. Okay. Finally, the channel quality, it refers to expertise, competencies and skills of established retailers in a nation and their ability to sell and support the products of international business, right. So, what is the expertise they are having, what competencies and the skills that they have. Although the quality of retailers is good in most developed nations, in emerging markets like for example, India and the close by nations and less developing nations from Russia to Indonesia, channel quality is variable, right. So, sometimes it is good, but sometimes it is not so good. When channel quality is poor, international business may have to devote lot of attention to upgrading the channel and providing extensive education and support to the existing retailers. So, this becomes also a challenge for managing the distribution system, and as we have understood, the distribution system is basically nothing but the intermediary between the manufacturer and the customer. So, this is a major player in the entire process. So, any small disturbance also can affect the profitability, the image, brand image and the acceptance of the company in the local market. Okay. Thanks to international business, global marketing, thanks to internet actually for the expansion in global marketing and international business, right. Because of the internet, as we have discussed, it has revolutionized the international business arena and global marketing in particular. Roughly speaking, the internet is a network of computers interconnected through the world, operating on a standard protocol that allows data to be transmitted. Until the early 90s, so that was a time when we said supply chain was there, but then it was not as efficient as it is today. But today you see the supply chain system, as I said, one company wins over the other with an efficient, because of an efficient supply chain. The internet was primarily the preserve of the military and academic researchers, it was not available for business largely. Now, this is how today the top 15 countries in internet usage is visible, right. So, this is a little old data, but this is must have increased dramatically, but still it gives you a fair amount of idea. Now, if you look at the kind of China has 253 internet users in millions, 253 million users, United States 220, Japan 94. So, it depends on the percentage of world users, if you can see, and penetration of the country, for example, in the 73.8% of penetration, because Japan's population is also less, right. So, Japan has a very high penetration, United States has a very high penetration, Germany has a very high penetration, then United Kingdom has a high penetration, France is also there, South Korea is there, Italy is also there, and then Canada is also very high, even Spain is very high. So, you can get a understanding that most of these countries which have a high penetration of internet, they are actually the developed ones and they are doing well, right. So, that means there is a correlation between the internet usage and the kind of growth in international business that has happened. So, internet and the competitive advantage. So, the internet offers two major benefits to the companies that use this tool as a gateway to the global marketing and managing their supply chain. One, it helps in cost and efficiency savings. Second is accessibility. Today, taking an order from a foreign buyer or supplier has become very simple, right. It is just through a mail you can do it. Earlier days it used to be obviously tough because there was no proper technology. The internet also offers access to customers around the world, right. The value of some of the pre-internet sources of competitive advantage has been deflated. So, the competitive advantage which earlier companies had before, when internet was not there, today these companies today are no more having those competitive advantage, because they have been completely flattened after the advent of the internet, right. Some observers argue that a small and large firms are on equal footing as equal global competitors, because today it does not matter what your size is. Earlier days it was a point of concern, because a big firm used to have take the advantage, but internet has helped in making everybody equal, because now what is important is you may be a small firm, but then if you are fast and accessible, you can do better business. Although size related advantages will probably lessen, claims that the internet provides a level playing field for all are somewhat overblown, but then it is true to a large extent. Okay. So, how internet is helping? For example, advantage of internet advertising: a global reach, low cost, allows precision. So, who you want to target, for example, whom do you want to target? You can just do that. Interactivity, so you can interact with your customers, ability to customize, ability to instantly monitor. So, all these are very important aspects of the internet. So, after internet has come, you see, as I said, it has been very easy to monitor the supply chain, to control the supply chain movements, right, the logistic movements, and today you know what exactly your customer is thinking, what your customer wants, how he wants, what you can segment your customer very cleanly, you can target your customer in a more efficient manner. So, all these things, and you can even by through interaction with your customers in an online system, you can understand what he wants and how you can achieve those kind of activities. So, all this has helped in improving the global business to a very large extent, and today's international business has become highly dependent on the internet and obviously the other factors. But the internet has really become a boon and improving the global supply chain, the production and the manufacturing system. Even you can think of a manufacturing process. Today there have been so many different activities which are helping. For example, you can control the through machines, you can control your machines through an online system, you can track the monitoring of the work and everything. So, all this has become a very highly big advantage, and which has led to zero waste management, zero waste is managed, zero waste, and you can also control automation has improved dramatically. So, less of labor is required in condition where labors are in short. So, all these things have become a very important factor, right. So, today we have completed the supply chain management part. So, how global supply chain management and how it affects the international business, what its role is, how do companies make the most with the help of the supply chain systems, and how internet has helped in there, we have discussed today. So, this is all for the day. Thank you very much.